Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going over this optic that you see in my hand and that you've seen throughout the beginning of this video. This is the EOTech EXPS2-0 green. So I'll walk you through sort of what that nomenclature means for those of you guys who are new to EOTech optics. The E in the EXPS stands for the fact that it has the enhanced mounting system. So this mount right here is a quick attach system. All of the E series from EOTech have that feature and that capability, and that's actually really good. It mounts to 1913 or Weaver style rail, most of your ARs and really most of your optics mounting platforms, whether they be rifles, carbines, etc., have that capability. It is adjustable, since we know that all 1913 rails aren't really Picatinny spec, so you can adjust it here with a screwdriver or actually even the rim of a case if you need to tighten it down a little bit more. Get it nice and snug, and then at that point, when you get to about here, you'll feel a lot of force. Clamp it down, and then this piece up front here locks it in place until you push that down, and then that gives you the ability again to release the lever. So pretty good little system there in that regard. Now again, it's the EXPS, so the X and that nomenclature means that it is the new body style from EOTech. So previously, many of the EOTechs out there used the AA batteries that were in line with the bore. Now, my opinion, I've said this before many times, that can be a problem on a lot of guns, particularly heavier recoiling guns, with those batteries bouncing back and forth under the springs with the recoil of a rifle. The EXPS series, or the XPS series, excuse me, solves that by using a CR123A battery here mounted perpendicular to the bore, so that way when the rifle is recoiling each time, it's not slamming back and forth under spring tension. Again, my opinion, that is absolutely a superior system there. And then the 2-0 indicates that it is not a night vision compatible optics. If it was, it would be a 3. So it would be like the EXPS 3-0, for example. And the -0 means that it only has one dot in the reticle. So EOTech offers several different reticle options out there. Some of them have a BDC in them, ballistic drop compensator, for those of you guys that are new. And what that does is allows you to zero it at a given distance, and then also have a holdover point, so that way where the bullet impacts will be where the holdover point is at a given distance. So this does not have that. It has this traditional 68 MOA ring, and then the 1 MOA dot in the middle. That's traditionally known as the donut of death. A lot of guys really like it for speed, up close and personal. If you put, someone's center mass of their chest or even their head inside that donut and pull the trigger, odds are that the gunfight's going to work out in your favor. So obviously it's 68 MOA, so at 100 yards it's going to cover 68 inches side to side there on that outside reticle, and then at like 12 yards I think it's 5 inches. So CQB distance, you're basically covering up someone's face, someone's center mass area, and going to work there. So it's a reticle that a lot of people really like. Another thing that's nice about it is because it has that wide ring as opposed to just a dot. For some people, this is what I hear anyway, I have an easier time picking it up initially. I've never noticed that to be different, but I've heard people say it, so it's just something to point out. On the right side of the optic, we have our elevation and windage adjustments. These here are very positive. Each one, you click it, and it will move the reticle approximately a ½ inch at 100 yards or half MOA. Again, very positive. You know you did it. There's no like, oh, did I turn it a click or did I not? It definitely lets you know through audible feedback as well as tactile feedback. They are protected by the outer sleeve here that we have on the optic, which I guess we'll talk about now since I just brought it up. The housing itself is kind of encased in this aluminum sleeve there. So the actual optic itself is much smaller than what it looks like here, but that sleeve on the outside there's a protective cover, so that way if you drop your rifle or anything like that, it protects it from impact and hopefully should not get damaged. Obviously, if you look around the internet, you can see pictures of EOTech glass damaged out there. That said, with the laser emitter that it has, you can still use it, which is really kind of cool. So that is kind of like a cool backup feature, I guess we'll say. It's definitely not how you want to use the optic, but it's good to know that if that glass does crack in any way, you still can use it. So anyway, each of those have, I believe, 40 MOA of adjustment for both the windage and elevation. Then here on the left side of the optic, from the shooter's perspective anyway, we have our up and down buttons, and those serve two functions. They can be used to turn the optic on and off, and also increase and decrease the brightness of the optic. Now, if you turn it on using the up arrow, the optic will automatically shut off 8 hours after you turn it on, unless you engage one of those buttons again. If you turn it on using the down arrow, it will automatically turn off 4 hours after you turn it on. Again, with the exception of if you hit one of those buttons again. So if you know guys who have done really long patrols or something like that with an EOTech, most of them will just automatically every now and then bump one of these buttons just as a force of habit. So that way their optic doesn't go out when they're on patrol or doing training or whatever the case may be. And then of course those shut it down as well, as we mentioned. Before I move on to field of view, I want to go back to these buttons and discuss a couple more issues. Number one is going to be the battery life. Like I said, they have an auto shut-off feature. The reason that is because the battery life on this Optic with the CR123A battery is 600 hours. So it is not a super long time like you'd see with some of the competitive red dot options out there. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one is green. So green, whether it be a green dot or a green holographic optic like we have here, either way, it's going to draw more battery than red does. I'm not an electrical engineer. I can't tell you why that is, but I've been reading about optics for, decades, and that's always been the case. So there is that. The other reason is that this is a holographic optic. So unlike a lot of the red dots out there, it's not just, turning on a dot in a tube that's being projected on a screen. This whole thing is being emitted by lasers onto a screen, and only you can see it. So that's one of the advantages of holographic sights. I should point that out, is that there's no light going forward, unlike most red dots out there that require a kill flash to minimize signature out front. Holographic optics don't have that. That's one of the advantages of it. The downside is just to do that takes so much more battery, and so you lose a little bit of battery life there over some of the competitive options out there, but it's just something to point out. All holographic optics have that problem, but on the pro side, holographic optics for a lot of folks are simply faster. And one of the things that makes EOTech considered to be one of the fastest optics out there is the field of view. So on this one, you guys can see it has a pretty large window on there, and compared to like a micro red dot or something like that, you simply have more area that you see through your shooting eye. Now, if you're shooting with both eyes open, I'm not entirely sure that that is a valid concern. I've said that before in videos. I stand by that. I don't notice a field of view with 1x optics at all. However, there's people that I know and who I respect who have done a lot of, two-way range type of things, and they say that that absolutely gives them more situational awareness when they're on the gun. Now, again, I've never noticed it. That said, I've never gotten into a gunfight with an EOTech, so I don't know if I'm really the guy to go to for that, but that is the way some folks feel about it, and then kind of how I feel about it in terms of field of view. Another thing that you'll hear about holographic optics that you don't hear when folks talk about red dots is that it doesn't look crisp. So with a holographic optic like this or some of the other competitors out there, the objective is to look through the optic. Now that's true for red dots as well, I should point that out. However, a lot of people are very used to looking at the dot on a red dot. So when they come up on a holographic sight and they see that image that's being laser projected out there in front of them, they say it looks blurry, fuzzy, blown out. You'll hear a bunch of different words to describe that. However, if you look through it and actually look at the target, in my experience with my eyes, which are very good, I should point that out. So that is something that if you don't have great eyes, take into account. If I'm looking at the target downrange, the reticle is perfectly clear. If I look at it, absolutely, it looks a little bit fuzzy. However, if you actually focus in on it with a camera, it actually looks pretty darn crisp. And that's kind of what it looks like when you're looking through it. Now, one of the things that absolutely needs to get brought up in this video, because it happened relatively recently, at least by historic standards, is that EOTech, of course, they had a lawsuit. I think some of you guys know that. They had some issues with thermal drift. To the best of my knowledge, none of the XPS or EXPS optics ever suffered from that, and EOTech says in their published literature that it's not an issue in these optics. I don't doubt that. I've never seen it with the XPS or EXPS series, but it's just something to point out there. And while thermal drift may have been a perceived problem in the past, and of course in some of those older optics it absolutely is a very real problem, one of the things that people like about EOTechs is that they have no parallax. I mean, like none that's perceivable in any test I've ever seen, and not perceivable to my eye. So what does parallax mean? If you're new, parallax is when you're behind an optic, whether it be a magnified scope or a red dot, if you move your head slightly, particularly when we're talking about a dot in relation to close in objects. So like 50 yards and in, you will see a parallax shift. You'll actually see the dot moving around within the housing of the object as it relates to your eye. Again, it's very easy to pick up on close in targets. Further out though, obviously it has more of an impact, as you can imagine, because that cone of dispersion becomes greater. But EOTechs, I've never seen any testing done, again, nor my eye have I ever seen any parallax movement. I've tested it with cameras. You guys are probably seeing the image rolling in now. It doesn't move. So that is something that's unique to EOTechs as far as I know. Since we're discussing some of the issues folks have had with EOTechs in the past, again, older models had some issues with nitrogen purging. I've not seen any reports, again, of the EXPSs, but what that would do is it would cause the optic to lose its submersion rating. Now this one, the 2.0 version is rated to be submerged for 33 feet. So unlike the 3 series, which is a lot deeper than that. This one's only 33 feet now. That said, the lake here right off my dock is about 12 to 15 feet, depending on the fill of the lake. And we're gonna chuck it in there real quick to see if it actually does have all the nitrogen where it's supposed to be, because if not, it'll be full of water or some sort of water residue anyway. And we'll see how it does. Give it a minute there to get to the bottom. I'll fast forward through that part. All right, it's been 60 seconds since it's been down there. It's definitely on the bottom. It'll probably be covered in some lovely lake silt, which is definitely not the best for optics, I would say. Actually, it doesn't really have much. Yeah, it definitely does. Now that I feel it, it's got the grime on there. All right, cool. So I'll pull it out here. Now, when I show you the reticle, guys, it's not gonna show up because the camera will not focus. I can guarantee you that, but you guys will see it's still on if we can get it somewhat green in there. There you go, you guys can see it. And we have no water inside those 2 windows. So we're good to go there in terms of the nitrogen purging and the gas seal on there. Looks like we're losing the sunlight, but I have a couple other points to get to before we close the video out, guys. Street price, that's always important. I'm not sure what the MSRP is, but looking around today before I hit record on the camera, this thing's coming to market right around $480 to $500, so it's not inexpensive, that's for sure. It's something to weigh there. It is 100% made in the United States, which is important for a lot of folks as well. The 2-0 series, like I mentioned earlier, is not night vision compatible. Is that an issue? Maybe, maybe not. I would say for the majority of gun owners in America, it's not, because probably upwards of 98% of folks that own firearms in America do not have night vision. But if you do, and you are someone who shoots with your night vision through optics like this, then definitely it's an issue. Me personally, not a huge issue. I do own night vision. However, the way I set it is I'm a single tube kind of guy, which is a video for another day. A single tube kind of guy, and it's on my off eye in terms of shooting, and I primarily use a laser designator as the way of engaging targets with my night vision. Now, folks that shoot through their optics, again, it could be an issue for you, just something to consider. Additionally, the mounting system on this is something to consider. So if you're running an AR-15 or something that's AR-15 style, these optics are great. The EXPS series is going to give you a co-witness, a lower 1/3 co-witness, and the XPS series is going to give you an absolute co-witness. Now that's with AR series type guns. If you're using it on something else like a shotgun or an AK or whatever the case may be, it may not be ideal in terms of your cheek placement, right? So that's something to consider. Some of the other options out there on the market, like a micro red dot or something like that, can give you a lower mounting solution than what you can get here with this optic. So definitely take that into account for what it is. And the other thing to really kind of consider is twofold. Number one is the speed of the optic. Again, EOTech's, my opinion, and a lot of other folks, are probably the fastest type of system out there in terms of quick target acquisition and engagement. That said, red dots are, thousandths of a second behind it, just slightly behind it. But what you're giving up with the red dot is the battery life. What you're gaining with the EOTech is the donut of death, the speed, all the good things that come with holographic projection at the cost of battery life. So I can't make that decision for you guys. That said, I've had this optic in now for just under a year probably, and I've had zero issues with it in any way, shape, or form, so I can't complain. Performance wise, it's done everything it says it will do. And in terms of do I prefer green or red, I've answered that in many videos in the past. I prefer green, and I'm probably in the minority on that, I would say. But for me, for my eyes, it's just quicker to pick up. From things I've read online from eye doctors and folks that research this sort of thing, that's not abnormal. However, a lot of shooters, particularly in the United States, are conditioned to pick up red with guns. It's just something the brains are wired to do. They've done thousands and thousands and thousands of ready ups, and they're looking for red. So some folks can't translate that to green. Just is what it is. That said, I live in a heavily wooded Carolina place, and even with that, some folks say, how does it do against a heavily green background? I don't notice any degradation or loss of speed or loss of sight acquisition versus red. For me, I just prefer green. Red's fine though, however, but I prefer green. But it kind of is a personal preference thing there. So I'll let you guys discuss that down below in the comments section. That's all I got for you guys. If you have any questions about the Optic that I didn't cover here, by all means, post down below in the comments section. However, if you actually need an answer to that question, reach out to me over at my Facebook page, shoot me a message. You guys should see it here on the bottom of your screen. I respond to all the messages I get over there on Facebook. The other places I post videos, I don't always see the stuff that comes in, so you can't guarantee that you're gonna get an answer from me. So there is that. If you guys are subscribed to the channel, thank you. If you're not subscribed and you like this type of video, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you're subscribed and you're not seeing 3 or so videos a week, there's a reason for that. Facebook or YouTube, excuse me, isn't always showing my videos to all my subscribers these days. So hit the notification bell. If you've done that and you're still not seeing them, I recommend you sign up for my email list. Every week I send out 1 email a week. It's not super spammy. It has all the videos of the week, and then it also has a few deals that I find along the way that might help save you guys some money. Like if this sucker goes on sale there, I will send it out to you guys there. It's also a way that gives us a direct line of communication without any gigantic tech company in between trying to censor what we see. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, I truly appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing all of you in the next video.